So, today we have something brand new, some awesome special rules that's gonna make Mason super happy because, well, it's
Meow
his,
meow.
because it's his favorite army and my least favorite army to face against. Put it nicely. So, it's for the Harlequins. We got our hands on the new, most of the new rules that just came out through.
Via
No, 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 no. When I get,
leaks.
let's just say through our little secret channel of spies. Anyway, that's it. Mason, you've done the most research about this army and everything, so
Alright.
how about you take it from the top?
If it sounds like we're a little weary, it's because this is our third time trying to record this now. All right.
That too.
So certain Harlequin characters kind of got the Exarch treatment like the Craft Worlds got in the first Psychic Awakening books. The Troopmaster, Shadowseer, Death Jester, and Solitaire can all replace their Choreographer of War ability, Shield from Harm, Death is Not Enough, or Blitz, respectively, those rules, with one of three different rules that each one gets. But you cannot have more than one of any of these alternates in the same army. So if you have three Troop Masters, any and all of them can have Choreographer of War, the one that it comes with. But only one of them can have Prince of Light, only one of them can have Darkness's Bite, or one of them can have Twilight's Grasp,
Now, just
as a
super,
simple example.
so super quickly, those three things that they just said, is that part of the new rules, or is this from same rules as of right now?
Those last three are part of the White Dwarf Psychic Awakening stuff,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the Choreographer of War is from the main codex.
Gotcha. Okay, go on.
So kind of like I said, it's treated in the same way that the Exarch abilities got in the first Psychic Awakening. In fact, there's also a stratagem where you can just simply take one of these new ones in addition to the standard version, just like how the Exarchs got. But we're going to go through this pretty quickly here. If your pivotal roles only really apply if your army is battle forged, like let's say if you have your Troop Master, I just went off the three of them. Prince of Light, basically reroll your charges for mask units within 6 inches, and if you already have a rule going on that does that, such as I think it's one of the Warlord traits. I'll have to look it up here. If you already have something like that, you simply add one to what you already have. So it is possible to reroll +1.
That is really funny, to say the least.
Yeah, I forget if it's I forget exactly where it comes from, but let's see. I think it is add to move. No, Warlord. No, Fractal Storm. I forget where it's from, but I remember there was some way to reroll charges. Let's see. Darkness's Bite. After the if you take this after the model has fought, you cause 2 mortal wounds on a unit that it has fought.
That is
So
that is really good, mostly against like tough targets like Custodes, for
yep,
example, or even
that's
Terminators or battle suits.
exactly. Yep. Or even if most commonly your main target is going to be like these days Space Marine intercessors. So you charge in. He's he's probably going to be armed with a power sword in most cases, or I shouldn't say that, a power sword, a Harlequin's Embrace. Sorry, Harlequin's Caress, not Embrace, because the Embrace sucks, or the Harlequin's Kiss. So usually Caress or Kiss. So you're probably going to get 2 wounds on something. This will give you another 2 mortal wounds in addition. So in if you even split up your attacks on 2 units, if you just put 1 attack on a unit, it might be a lone weak unit that you're just trying to finish off. Use Darkness Bite, and he's got 2 mortal wounds on him. So you put almost all your effort on Unit A, you just put enough to use this ability on Unit B, do some serious damage here, and actually finish off Unit B. That's how I would use it anyway.
That is a very, very good strategy to say the least.
Yeah, and that for the ability. Otherwise, yes, you could use it, especially with some of the relics that's upcoming here. You can use it to great effect to basically make the Troopmaster into a cheap assassin. So, if you're using this in relation to the sword that's going to be coming up, or Kagorak's Rose, which does 3 damage to infantry units. Otherwise, it's a regular Harlequin's Kiss that re-rolls wound rolls. Not bad at all.
Not bad at all, to say the least. Okay, so moving on.
Next is Twilight's Grasp for the Troopmaster. Again, replaces Choreographer of War. May unmodified wounds of a 2+ against monsters and vehicles in melee. 2+ to wound them. That's it.
Going against Titans and other super heavy units.
Monsters and vehicles. So that even if it has the Titanic keyword, if it does not have the monster or vehicle keyword in there as well for some reason, then this would not affect that. I don't know how many units that is, but we got to keep that in mind as well.
Yes. But still, even like against something like Lumen Russes, for example, or even Land Raiders, you know, when it's Toughness 8, that's still pretty good.
Now, I can see more tournament players taking this because of the combination of reliability and flexibility. Again, they're usually decent wounding on 4s or 5s, especially if you have the Harlequin's Caress, against most melee or biker units. But now you can also attack monsters and vehicles and wound them even easier? Okay!
That is really good, to say the least.
And this would also help to make the Power Sword an actual option. And if not Power Sword, this would actually make the Harlequin's Embrace +1 strength, -3 AP, 1 damage weapon, and a somewhat viable option.
Now,
especially for that -3 AP, but still +1 strength against other infantry. And now you can wound monsters and vehicles on 2s with a reliable AP -3. Okay.
It's just nasty, to say the least. So, what is the next thing?
Next, we're going to move on to Shadowseer. So these will replace Shield from Harm, which is the -1 to wound Harlequin infantry within 6 inches. First one that you can replace it with is Veil of Illusion. -6 inches to shooting attacks that target mask units within 6 inches. So this is very similar to the Night Shield from that Dark Eldar had in 5th, 6th, and I think 7th edition. So this is, you try to shoot, let's say the range to the unit that you're trying to shoot is 24 inches away. You're shooting bolters. Okay, with this ability, no, they're technically, for the rules purposes, they're now 30 inches away. And this also applies for rapid fire. So if I'm within 15 inches of a unit that has bolt rifles, so intercessors, sorry, but you actually have to be within 12 to rapid fire them now. So you can easily get into some good shenanigans with this. But this is better for when you're trying to protect units that want to stay further away or that you want to have on a backfield objective. For how I play, which is very much just get in your face and force you to deal with me, this isn't really going to affect them so much.
No, not at all.
And if you're fighting somebody who has a lot of snipers, like somebody who constantly takes a Vindicare, again, this is not really going to affect them, just because they're usually, 48-inch range up to 72, right?
The regular sniper rifle is around 36. I think the Vindicator sniper rifle
Okay.
is around 72, actually.
Okay. So this will have a minimal effect on like Eldar Rangers,
Right.
36-inch range, I think it is. So it'd make it like as if it was 42.
Right. So what about Gloomwake?
Gloomwake. Oh, gotta plug in my AC cord here for my computer.
Yep.
Mask units within 6 gain benefit of cover, so this will be a little bit more useful on your vehicles and your bikes. So this could be helpful if you had a backfield full of Void Weavers that are just plinking shots, giving them a 3-up armor. Not bad. If you're Star Weavers, your transports, they could actually benefit from this pretty well. But mainly this is going to benefit the Sky Weavers, the jet bikes, because the Shadow Seer is probably going to be pretty close to them at this rate.
Well, honestly, I think just looking over the fantasy rules, well, the traits that I can take, I think Agent of Bedlam is the best. And Mason, what do you think?
Depends on your build.
Because it does say, well,
And enemy units that are within 6 inches of the Shadow Seer subtract 1 from their attack characteristics to a minimum of 1.
but at the same time, most of the time you do have your Fatal Seer stuck around other models.
Yes, usually you have, let's say the palm of my hand is your Shadow Seer. Usually your Shadow Seer is going to have units all around it protecting it so that they are not the first thing shot. Because unless you have the sniper rule, they're going to get shot.
Right. Okay.
So usually you're not going to use this unless you're compiling this with something like the Suit of Hidden Knives. Which, actually no, because that would be detrimental to this. So never mind. I just don't really see the Agent of Bedlam that great for most builds.
I think if you're going against something like, for example, like
If I'm fighting orcs,
yep,
oh yeah,
or even Terminators, or Raptors, or Assault Marines.
Honestly, at that point, I would rather have Shield from Harm. Because yes, I'm automatically forcing a -1 attack, which is basically forcing you to miss an attack no matter what. I can do more with the Shield from Harm. Do you see what I mean?
I do, and I think it's one of those things that you have to play test a couple times to see.
Yep.
But
it'd be even better if I had 2 Shadow Seers near each other where they could play off of each other's aura abilities. That would be awesome.
Okay, well, moving on to the next fun thing is the
Death Jester. Now here's where things actually get interesting to me. The Death Jester has played a role that has been underappreciated, where you use leadership shenanigans to effectively remove a unit that you don't want in a squad before you charge it.
which honestly I do think is a good idea, to say the least. But
almost every faction has ways to deal with leadership, so it wasn't a strong rule, which also suggested why there were so few in points.
Right.
In addition, with them having the sniper rule, but only a 12-inch, or sorry, not 12-inch, 24-inch gun.
Well, maybe some of the new things might be good, actually. So, how about that?
Well, actually, some of this new stuff can make him a wonderful character killer.
Well, what about the Harvester of Torment?
Harvester of Torment, when shooting a unit with 6 or more models, each hit, and he hits on 2s, counts as 3. So he has the Shrieker Cannon has 2 profiles. a Shuriken Cannon, which has 3 shots, or a Shrieker, which has 1 shot. That Shrieker is the one that you really wanted because it would, if it killed somebody, D3, forget if it was 1 damage or D3 damage on the regular. I'll have to look that up real quick. But basically, it would, if it slew a model, that model would explode and do D3 mortal wounds to that unit. With this, if I shoot the Shuriken shot, each hit counts as 3. 3, that's possibly of 9 actual hits on a unit. Not bad.
Not at all.
Yep, it is the Shrieker 1 shot, infantry only. So infantry model that is slain by the attack. So not bikers or anything like that. All right.
Now, what about the just escapable?
Oh, and before we get to that, Harvester of Torment, if you look at the rules, it specifically says that it is not cumulative with anything else that would increase the number of shots. So if you look at the stratagems section in your codex, there is a stratagem that every hit counts as 2 hits, and 6 is unmodified 6s to hit count as 3 hits. This does not go in conjunction with that. Keep that in mind. All right?
Okay.
So that one's pretty good, but we're going to get to something that's, I think here is, actually, these next 2 are going to be used very often. In fact, these next 2 make me think that, especially in competitive play, at least 1 Death Jester will be almost compulsory for any mono Harlequin, preferably 2 for any Eldari soup list. First is just inescapable. You add 12 inches to your range, unmodified 6s to wound, cause an additional mortal wound, so you're taking an AP -3, because they usually have some kind of blade storm, and a mortal wound, and you cannot take cover saves. What do you think about that one?
That's really, really bad, to say the least.
So 36-inch range on his gun, 6s cause an additional mortal wound, no cover. And as we get to something later on, one of the new relics for the Death Jester is kind of like a mini version of the old relic Shrieker Cannon. But here we go to what I think will always be taking. Humbling Cruelty. If you hit a unit, you just have to hit. You don't need to kill anybody. That target unit is pinned, meaning you subtract 2 inches from its movement, and it cannot overwatch.
Goodbye, Fire Warriors. Goodbye, Guardsmen.
Now, I will have to look at what is the wording on the Tau Overwatch stuff. They're for the greater good. Because I want to compare that to Humbling Cruelty real quick, if you can pull that up.
I cannot, but honestly, I mean, that's still pretty
Okay.
good. It's still a pretty good one. So
okay. Oh, no, wait, never mind. I remembered it. So with the Tau for the greater good, they can overwatch as if they were targeted. With Humbling Cruelty, only that target unit that you shot cannot fire overwatch. So you can still get shot by everybody else around. Be careful about that.
Yes.
But you can still use it to bait the for the greater good out. Because remember, once a unit has used for the greater good, they cannot overwatch or use that rule again in that turn. So keep that in mind.
I fail. So what about the Solitaire?
The Solitaire, he did get better,
Mm-hmm.
but he's going to do it in a different way now. So this will replace Blitz, that once per game, you move 3d6 plus your movement. Well, now he gains Deep Strike. So basically, that's the shorthand version of saying he comes in from reserves at the end of one of your movement phase, either turn 2 or 3, more than 9 inches away from enemy models. He can roll 3d6 charge distance, ignoring the lowest.
And which one is that? Is that the Shocking Emergence?
Yes, that was Shocking Emergence.
Okay.
And let me double check the rules for him real quick, because I think that also forces him out of another role here. All right, so that means he'll only have 8 attacks throughout the game. He will never be able to get 10, because Blitz, you add 2d6 to your move characteristic, and if you charge on the turn that you did it, or sorry, he just automatically gets 10. He doesn't have to even charge. Oh, nice. But I've never really used a Solitaire much. He just doesn't usually fit into my style of lists. But with this, he becomes something slightly more akin to how the Evisaur Assassin works.
Right. Okay.
So it's kind of a trade-off. Do you want to move that really fast once per game, or do you want to consistently charge?
Right. Okay, so what's the next thing?
So next is Chromatic Rush. This is the one you want to pay attention to. All right. This is the one that you're probably going to see in tournament play because of its consistency. You always advance an extra your 6 inches, and it piles in and consolidates an extra 3 inches every time.
That was pretty good.
So consider this now. Midnight Sorrow, they pile and consolidate 6 inches. With this, Assault Midnight Sorrow Solitaire will be piling in and consolidating 9 inches.
I do like that. That's pretty good. So what about...
Which means he is going to be bouncing around your deployment zone, attacking things 8 times, and they can fall back and charge.
I know that. I learned that the hard way a long time ago. So what about Unnatural Aerobatics?
This one is probably going to be taken more often if your Solitaire is not Midnight Sorrow. It's just, he's -1 to be hit. Plain and simple.
Right. Well,
It doesn't matter if it's shooting or close combat phase. It's solid, and it does very well with the -1 to hit stratagem. It's solid. I like it.
Oh, yeah. So now, moving on, let's go look at the stratagems, actually. It looks like they got a total of 9 new ones.
All right, can you read this one off for me?
Yeah, so...
I'm just getting something to drink here.
Oh, yeah, okay. So, they got the first one is for 1 command point. It is Pivotal Roll, and it's basically uses stratagem before the battle. You select 1 Troopmaster, Shadow Seer, Death Jester, or 1 other respectable pivotal roll ability. Oh, I mean, I'm sorry. I skipped a line. Death Jester or Solitaire from your army. That model gains 1 of the pivotal roll abilities. Not that bad, depending on what model it is and everything.
Unmute myself. You just gain it. It does not replace it in this particular case.
Exactly.
But you cannot take one of these optional ones and then for 1 CP take another optional one and have one the same. No, you can't do that.
Yeah, they can't stack it. Okay, so what about the Polychromatic Storm?
Polychromatic Storm. 2 command points.
Mm-hmm.
before the battle starts, redeploy 3 units at the start of the game. And this can be used in conjunction with the 100 Swords of All. So, it'll be a little bit costly, but you ultimately can redeploy up to 4 units in a Harlequin army.
That's pretty good. It can mess up the enemy pretty quickly, to say the least.
And if you think about it, at about 2,000 points, that's going to be roughly 40 to 50% of your army.
So what about Murderous Entrance for 2 command points?
Murderous Entrance. Alright, if your Harlequin unit charges, the first time it fights, +1 damage in close combat. So if you were to use Warrior Acrobats, that 3 command points fight again, this would not apply for the use of the Warrior Acrobats. So for that second round of attacking.
What?
So if let's say you're using the Harlequin's Caress, which is +2 strength, -2 AP, 1 damage. Use this against especially Primaris, which is all pretty much what you're fighting in competitive play these days. Now, each failed save is a dead Primaris. If you go for Harlequin's Kisses, Brett, how many wounds is the typical Custode?
3 from the base guys.
So, with this, in order to kill a Custode, and the averages of D3 being 2, on average,
They can kill 1.
Every unsaved wound is a dead Custode.
Yeah, that is pretty damn good to say the least. So what about the Twilight?
Let's see. Don't skip.
Oh, oops.
The Curtain Falls, 2 command points. Instead of consolidating, you can fall back as if for a movement phase.
That can be pretty good. And hello, kitty.
Yep. So
and
there are times when you don't want to consolidate. Keep in mind, if you consolidate, it has to be towards the nearest enemy unit. Falling back does not. And consolidating is only 3 inches typically.
Mm-hmm.
There are exceptions to that. But with this, you would be moving your full movement distance in any direction, as long as you stay outside of 1 inch of an enemy unit.
Now, moving on to the Twilight Encore.
Encore, 1 command point. In the enemy movement phase, if your enemy falls back from a Harlequin troop unit, that troop unit can consolidate 6 inches, but it has to consolidate towards that unit. So most things in the game can move 6 inches or less, because Terminators move 5 inches and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Same with, I think, Centurions and what are the Primaris version Terminators? The Aggressors.
Yes, they are 5 inches, yes.
So somebody falls back, you could use this to basically keep them in combat and not be able to shoot at you. Or you could still use Kagorak's Jest if they're within range of your pistols. But keep in mind, a lot of people use fusion pistols, so if they move 6 inches or more, they might not be in range.
Right.
Because you got to keep in mind, not everybody always goes base to base. They just get within an inch, and then they fall back 6 inches, and now they're like 6.5 inches away, and you can't shoot them with your fusion pistols.
Right. Okay, well, talk about moving away. Let's move on to the Foals of the Mind.
At the start of the shooting or fight phase, it doesn't say whose. The Shield from Harm ability on your Shadow Seers affects all mask units. So it's not just infantry anymore. It's your Skyweavers, the jet bikes. It's your Star Weavers. This is gold.
It is. Kind of pricey, but still gold to say the least. Now,
Yeah. Yes, but this is why a lot of Harlequin, competitive Harlequin mono factions are going for uh, double battalion.
right. So, moving on to mythical.
Mythic roll.
There we go.
One command point. You can only use this before the game starts, when your army has a Shadow Seer, and it can only be, like I said, only on one unit. But it's not just any Harlequin unit, it's pick an Eldari unit.
And that's a lot of things. It does expand to many, many different things.
Mhm. Each time that unit shoots or fights, you can reroll one hit or one wound roll. So, let's say you're taking an Outrider detachment and you have Shining Spears. Hey, guess what? Those Shining Spears got a bit of a boost.
They did.
Maybe you're taking Dark Reapers. Dark Reapers got a decent boost.
They do.
Let's say you're like me and you're just having a little bit of fun and you're bringing one of these Wraith Knights. He just got a little bit better.
He did. Now, moving on to Eye of Damnation.
Let's see. Eye of Damnation. Where is that? I think I missed that one in my notes section.
So basically,
Yep, I missed it.
Yep. So
Yep,
basically,
okay, there it is.
Oh, they got it. Okay.
Let's see. Murderous Entrance. The Curtain Falls. Twilight Encore did that.
So basically, what
Yes, here it is.
we got it. Okay, awesome.
Yep. It's Solitaire only. If your Solitaire has been destroyed as a result of an attack made by a melee weapon by an enemy model, all right?
Mm-hmm.
That unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So it's kind of like the meltdown thing that the Eversor does.
Right. Still, give me.
Yep.
Decent.
But it cannot be used in conjunction with the price is too steep stratagem.
Well, but that's...
So this would be useful, kind of like when we did our 2.5k chaos game,
mm-hmm.
where my Solitaire died against Abaddon.
Well, that was fun. But how about fun? How about the last stratagem that we have?
Virtuosos of the Webway. I actually like the idea behind this. I'm not sure how often I would use it, but I like the idea, fluff-wise. You pick at the end of one of your movement phases, you pick a Harlequin's infantry unit, and that's not in close combat, basically. You remove it from the battlefield, put it into oncoming reserves, and then you deep strike it more than 9 inches away from any enemy models.
That can really screw things up. But
so
I think
where this particular one would shine is a lot of people like to deep strike units into your backfield, either as an attack or to capture an objective. What this would do, especially if you do this on turn, at the end of... If you had first turn and you use it at the end of your movement phase, yank a unit that's in the front lines, or just is nowhere that's actually useful, pop them out. Your enemy puts their units from reserve on, and then you can use this to counter that.
Pretty good. Well,
I
think...
Or you can just grab a really remote objective.
Well, I think that's enough of those stratagems. We're almost done, and let's talk about some of the war gear options quickly.
Yeah, you mean the relics, yes. These, some are phenomenal. Others are, alright.
Well, what do you think about the Fatal Stone?
First I'll say what it does, and then I'll say what I think about it. If for a Shadow Seer only, you add 3 inches to your aura abilities and psychic powers. So, for example, the double movement power that they have, Twilight Pathways, is the 3 inches. This would increase that to 6 inches. Another common power that Shadow Seers take is Shards of Light, which is D3 18-inch range, D3 damage, -1 leadership. With this, it'd now become 21. And your aura abilities, especially for the stuff that we were talking about in these stratagems, this would actually be very good.
Well,
but with that said, I would still keep one Shadow Seer, the one that I typically have Twilight Pathways on, with the Falchio's Talon and the Warlord trait to get out of vehicle after it has moved. Because what that does is, you found out, is I move the Skyweavers up as far as I can towards you. I then move the Starweaver as far as it can, which it can move an additional 6 inches with that relic. And then I have the Shadow Seer pop out behind, launch or slingshot the Skyweavers through. So I wouldn't really need this on that one. However, I wouldn't mind paying an extra command point to take this on my second Shadow Seer. So especially with there's a lot of powers that are -1 to hit, which you target either a friendly unit, and there's one that you're targeting an enemy unit. That would be fantastic on these, especially with those aura abilities of Shield from Harm or Veil of Illusion in particular.
Well,
maybe. No, I still wouldn't put it on something with Agents of Bedlam.
Well,
no.
What do you think about? I can't even pronounce that name to save my life.
Kagorak's Lament. This is normally the relic version of the Shrieker Cannon is Curtainfall, but that's for a specific mask only. This is not.
It's just any death model.
Yep. This replaces the Shrieker Cannon. It has 2 profiles. The Whale profile, 36-inch range already. Assault 1, Strength 6, AP -3, D3 damage. Sorry, 3 damage. Damage 3. And then the Shuriken, which is 36, Assault 3, Strength 6, AP -3, damage 1. Now, for each model slain by the Whale profile, they suffer D3 mortal wounds, just like any Shrieker Cannon, and -2 leadership until the end of the turn. Not the end of the battle round, which is interesting to me.
It is.
End of the turn, not the battle round, so don't confuse those, please.
Right. Well, what about the Twilight Fang?
So, well, don't get there just yet.
Oh.
The Shrieker Cannon, the Kagorak's Lament, this is one that, again, any mask can take, and it's definitely an improvement. So this in combination with, if you go back, so go back on the rules here. Doop. What do you think about fighting this in combination with Humbling Cruelty or just Inescapable?
Very, very annoying, to say the least. I think that would actually screw me up no matter what unit that I'm using, like Tornadoes, for example, Thunder Hammers, or even Calstogs just in general.
Yeah, because they're all AP -3. One of them is 3 damage. And then keep this in mind. There's a stratagem that increases the damage of these and strength. So, or is it strength and AP? I'd have to double check. Let's see. Shrieking Doom, use Mirthless Hatred. But anyway, at the very least, I know it's +1 strength. Yes, strength characteristic by 1 and damage characteristic to D3 until the end of the phase. So it would change the damage from 1 or 3 to D3, but you could end up with a strength 7 AP -3 D3 damage weapon.
That's pretty good.
That's also pretty flexible.
It is.
And that's for 1 CP. You would increase the strength and change the damage to D3. You'd probably do this more with the Shuriken than you would the whale, but still.
Yes. Now, what
That
about
is awesome.
what about the Twilight Fang?
Troopmaster only. This replaces either the Power Sword or Harlequin's Blade. Honestly, if you're going to do this, don't bother buying the Power Sword. I've fully expect this to get FAQ to be replacing a Power Sword. It's a melee weapon. Strength +2. AP -3. Flat 2 damage. And it gains an additional attack, or I should say the bearer gains an additional attack for each battle round that it is. So, battle round 2, your Troopmaster will go from 5 attacks to 7.
Pretty good.
On turn 3, 8. Turn 4, he'll now have 9 attacks at strength 5, AP -3, 2 damage.
Pretty good. Now, moving on to the next one.
Veil of Tears. This one I do like, but I'm not sure how often I'll use it compared to the Shadow Stone on my second Shadow Seer. If I get 3, maybe.
Well,
But once per turn, and it's not just Shadow Seers, by the way. It's just a relic for any character. Once per turn, a saving throw is just automatically passed. So, that one that you rolled for your saving throw, no, it's pass.
well, how about
Especially if it's on something like a Solitaire, which already has a 3-up invul save.
yeah, that's kind of nasty. Well, talking about being nasty, how about what was the Dominic Shroud? Is that nasty?
It's not nasty, but it is very tactical. Meaning that it doesn't do wonderful damage by itself. I just don't see this one being used very often. Once per battle, at the end of any phase, if the user was set up as a reinforcement this turn, you place a marker within 12 inches of them, you then remove them from the battlefield, and set that model up within 1 inch of the marker and outside of 1 inch of enemy units. But you cannot charge.
Still, that can be pretty good, even if you have
Right.
fusion pistols.
But keep in mind that you can use this if you have come up from reinforcement and charged somebody. Because it says at the end of any phase. So at the end of your fight phase, maybe, you basically use this to get away.
That can be real good.
It can, but at the same time, Harlequins can already fall back and charge. Though the fall back, shoot, and charge. So I don't see this one taken very often, although I can see a place in it if you know you're going to be in close combat with something that you don't want to be in close combat for very long.
Exactly. And
maybe your Frozen Stars, which get an additional attack on the charge, this would be more beneficial for them. Again, if you charge something that you don't want to be in close combat with for a long time, so you can get those extra attacks.
Right. And last but not least, let's wrap this
Destiny. Yep. Destiny's Jest. During deployment, you can either choose or roll a d6. On 1, bearer gets +1 attack. On a 2, +1 strength. 3, +1 toughness. 4, +1 wound. 5, an additional 3 inches to their movement. Or on a 6, or whatever you choose, improve the AP characteristic of a melee weapon by 1.
I think toughness can be the best.
Normally you'd be right. But on Harlequins, that additional toughness from 3, going from 3 to 4 not that great.
Depends on who they're fighting.
So
If they're fighting like Guardsmen, for example, instead of ruining you on a 4-up, it would be a 5-up.
yes, but most of them are Space Marines.
But instead of a 3, it would be a 4 wound.
So, yes, but again, it's not going to help you as much as that additional attack or strength will, because of things like the Harlequin's Cutter S, +2 strength. With this, that'd be +3. So now you'd be strenging at strength 6, which now puts you at threatening levels to light vehicles.
True.
And most monstrous creatures. Whereas that toughness becoming toughness 4, you're still getting squished. I can see the additional wound. I can see the additional 3 inches to the movement, because there is another ability in the Codex here for a warlord to add +2 inches to their movement. With this, you can add another 3, so another 5 inches.
That can be really good.
Yes, especially with Harlequins. Or I can also see the AP of melee weapon by 1. So especially somebody who has a Harlequin's Kiss now becomes strength 4, AP -2, D3 damage.
Pretty good. But
I can actually see this.
So, Mason, I think that's basically everything that we can say about this. Any quick final words before we stop recording?
This is... We don't know if these are all the rules that are coming out. So there might be more. We just don't have any of that information yet. But again, I think the biggest things to take from this will actually be an Assassin Troopmaster, the Veil of Illusion's Shadows here, a Death Jester with Humbling Cruelty will probably always be seen now, especially in combination with Kagorak's Lament, the replacement for the Shrieker Cannon. So I can... Typically, Harlequins are taking an additional relic. Now I can see them take an additional 2 relics on a regular basis.
And I think in ending, Mason, that was a good video. And hopefully in the future, we'll getting some new rules, some new information, and thus we will go and do more videos about the Harlequins. So, Mason, I will say this in closing. Like what we always say, get the stuff painted.